welcome to you wandering leadership wannabes out there. Welcome to this second podcast with Donna Mack, your in-house lawyer's leadership coach. And today we have got someone really special with us, who is a brilliant friend of mine who I have met in the Elite Closing Academy, which is an academy that brings business owners together to help people close business. And Anna and I met about 2 months ago, and we have become really, really good friends. Anna is a coach and mentor specifically for entrepreneurs who need to get out of their own way so they can make their business work for them, so they can live the life that they want to. So Anna, welcome.
Hello, thank you, Donna. Thank you for having me on. And I think that's very us, isn't it? Like, met 2 years ago. Feels like we met 2 years ago, 2 months ago. And we are these people who dive right into the deep end, right? And we're like best mates already. So
I know, I love it. That's really, well, we will be talking about leadership later. That's one thing that we probably will be drawing out later as well, is what is leadership. So what we're going to do is really talk through what leadership really means, because you might be listening in or watching this thinking, well, I'm not a leader, this isn't for me. But hang around, because you might be very surprised with the things in your life that you have got complete control and leadership over. And my question to you is to think about, oh, am I really a leader, or am I just doing stuff? Everybody listening here today or watching today is a leader in something. And the leadership mindset is all about how you hold your position in that thing that you are leadership over. So what we're going to do is just talk through a couple of things, like what is a leader? How can you really bring out leadership in your life? And what is the leadership mindset? So, and what are the things that you can do to transform your mindset so that you can feel like you're in control and making your life work for you? So I'm going to chuck it over to Anna. Anna, because you work with entrepreneurs, they're probably consider themselves natural leaders because they own a business. In your world and the leadership coaching that you do, because I would consider you like a leadership coach as well, because you help people at the top of their chain, really. What for you would you say leadership really is?
That's a great question. Actually, it's funny that you should say about kind of feeling like a leader. And I've got several clients who actually, that the word leader, we talk about the word leader and they're like, do not use that word leader. Oh, it makes me kind of feel like, oh, I'm not a leader. And I think that's actually really important to first of all embrace that, because actually for me anyway, leadership is about actually just leading the way, right? Going in a direction when maybe you've got people over here who are saying and doing a certain thing, actually being open to doing something different. And I think that's what being a leader is all about. Actually, not necessarily just going with what society tells you should do, or what other people in your family or surroundings or even in your company think that you should do, but actually to be able to bring everything inside yourself, work out what you really want to do, and then actually move forward. And I think that's what almost like the foundation of leadership is, that, you know what, I'm going to actually go in a direction that maybe is away from what the status quo is.
Social norm is.
Yeah. And I think for me that's kind of really key.
Yeah. And I definitely see that in some of the people that I work. For those of you out there who can't remember what I do, or you've slept since the last time you heard me, I work with lawyers to help them to step into leadership. And Anna, I think you've kind of touched on a side of leadership which is very interesting, especially when I talk about the legal sphere, and I don't want this just to be dominated by talking about legal, but in the legal sector at the moment, well, the whole way through the legal sector for the last decades, that centuries that it's been out there, there is at the moment a real big issue around managing stress and expectations in that sector. And I see out there a lot of coaches and a lot of general counsels and partners in law firms kind of try to set the way on how they should be leading that industry very differently than they have been historically. And part of that is kind of setting a new agenda and selling, not selling, but following a different route. And going back to what you've said, Anna, I think it's really interesting where you talk about leadership is setting the way and bringing everything inside yourself. And that brings out one word that springs to my mind, which is authenticity. Leading with authenticity, and leading with that authenticity, and that you know that you're doing the things that align with you. So you're not doing things that you normally wouldn't want to do, and that can bring out real authenticity. Which I think is a really big thing that you've mentioned there. What else do you see as a leadership quality, or what leadership really is?
Yeah. And I love that you've just touched on kind of the legal sector. And as you know, kind of, I was in the legal sector for a big chunk of time. I was in the intellectual property world. So I will talk about the legal sector all day long. And it was actually really, really interesting coming into the legal sector from, when I came into the legal sector, I'd been an entrepreneur. Well, I personally don't like the word entrepreneur, right? In my mind, unless you're Richard Branson, right, you're not an entrepreneur. That's how I think.
Well, that's a self-limiting belief, Anna.
I know, right? That was my old belief. Chuck that one out the window. That was an old belief, right? But I had my own businesses since 2006. So coming into the legal sector, actually, it felt like I'd gone back 20 years. It was like, hold on, what goes on here? You have this hierarchy, and there wasn't. It didn't feel that there was necessarily a hierarchy of leadership. What it felt like is, if you did well, if you earned well in your, what you were doing, you would be made to be a partner. And suddenly it would be like, go manage all these people there.
And good in the, especially in law firms, good looked like where you were being highly utilized to bring in money.
I was going to say, it's all about the money, right? If you were bringing in money, you were good at what you did. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that in itself can breed a lack of leadership, because most people will perform, as we know, with regards to how they're measured. And if you're measured in time, guess what you're not going to do? You're going to put to the bottom any other things that would really help to push growth into the organization, anything that will help keep high retention, anything that will keep people happy. Hence the reason why law firms do have a very high attrition rate, because of how the people are measured. But going back to what we're talking about in terms of leadership, we talked about, first of all, like authenticity, being and making sure that you're doing something that follows your meaning and your values and your vision and your purpose, which is one thing that we help do here at the In-House Lawyers leadership program, is help leaders who don't feel that they know what that is to get that. So so that's like authenticity. And you mentioned then about leaders. We kind of touched on that topic about how the legal world is slightly different in terms of how people are measured in their in the way that they're measured in terms of performance. And I would suggest there that a really good leader can help people measure other things. so that they can grow and develop within the organization. And a good leader will do that, as I see beyond the immediate bottom line, and they're more strategic in the way that they think about people strategy and what they need to be doing in their team to keep people as well. And what else, Anna? What is so we're kind of moved into what a good leader looks like. Going back to what leadership is, what else would you say are good qualities for a leader, Anna?
And I love that you've just touched on that kind of almost a little bit on actually seeing people's different qualities. And I know you and I do a lot of personality profiling in what we do. And for those of you who don't know what we are talking about at all, we are all made up of kind of different elements. And what Donna and I do in a lot of the work that we do is actually we ask lots of questions to understand actually what are your, almost like Donna was just saying about the key values and what drives you as a person, the how and the why you do the things that you do. And I think actually for a great leader actually can very easily look at their team, see who they have in their team, what their strengths are, and actually play to those strengths. Because I think we see in the world a lot of people saying, you know, don't hire for, you know, the actual job, hire for people's, you know, abilities and values, because you can teach them anything.
Additional kind of softer skills, is that what you?
Yeah, kind of the softer skills, actually what they are like as a human. Because if someone is driven, and actually I was talking to one of my clients yesterday, he was talking about his team, and we were discussing one particular person in the team and the fact that this person is very driven. And we talked about, well, actually, if this person does not feel that they are moving forward, being driven to a certain extent, that, you know, what will end up happening is one day they're just going to hand in their notice, and they won't even necessarily know that's happening because they are a fast mover. It's like one day things will be okay, the next day they won't. So we were kind of talking around that side of things, of actually, okay, being aware of what your team members, you know, are good at, how you can place those team members. And also I think it's really important as a leader not to micromanage, and this particular person,
yes, it depends on the person. It depends on the person.
I think, yes, you are right, because some people need that extra help, but I think it's almost like if someone needs a little bit of encouragement, helping them do that without actually taking the role off them.
Taking it over, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
And not almost like doing their work for them because it's easy. And we've had these conversations, haven't we, Donna? Like almost like doing their work for them because it's easier and it's quicker than actually kind of together moving forward and training.
Yes. And this brings back to the point we kind of made. Well, I said it.
I love it. Take ownership, Donna. Take ownership.
I'm going to own that one. No, as this comes back to the point about having a more long-term strategic plan about people and people development. Because if a leader doesn't have that and only responds in the moment and can't see the benefit, the long-term benefit of them stepping back a bit and them seeing the long-term benefit for them as a leader and for the individual, will they less likely stop micromanagement? So I completely agree, and that skill to be able to understand what your team individual needs are from a growth perspective and how to give them that is essential, because you are not a leader if people aren't following.
100%, exactly. And I think it's really important to actually have your team, you know, cohesive. Everybody's kind of working together. Everybody is on the same page, because otherwise you're going to spend half of your day actually managing, like firefighting, and that is really exhausting. But I think more than anything else, we were touching on this before, but actually you've got to lead yourself first. Because if you are not walking your talk, and I think we see this a lot in the coaching industry.
Yeah.
if you're not actually walking your talk first, and I'll be honest, right? On the days that my life feels a little bit tougher, I will do my own work and I'll be like, oh my God, I've got to do my own work. Right? I am literally in that frame of mind because I know it. I'm forcing myself to do it because I know it works. But do I want to do it? No, I'm like a rebellious child, right? I don't want to do my homework.
Yeah,
so,
we had an instance like that yesterday, didn't we, Anna?
We did. And it was being a rebellious child. So, but I think as well within, and as you know, within my podcast, I talk about being imperfect.
Oh yes, what's the name of your podcast?
Well, I just said it. You see, Donna, lace that in. Being imperfectly perfect, because I think sometimes being a leader, we can tell ourselves a story of we've got to be perfect. I can't have any flaws. I can't have any faults. I've got to basically have no vulnerabilities and I've got to move forward. And I think the difficulty is, touching back on what you said about authenticity, people can smell that a mile away. People can smell a mile away that you are not truly authentic. And actually, let's face it, hands up who hasn't got any problems. You know, I've got lots of stuff going on in lots of different areas, and life is a juggling act. We pay more attention over here and then move over here.
Getting a little bit of journalism style, what would you say that your big challenge is?
My biggest challenge at the moment?
Just generally, as Anna, what's Anna's general challenge? Because I think I know for me, I have my general challenge as a Donna Mac thing. Yeah. And what's yours?
I think it's the challenge that has always been in my life, and having kids. My kids are now 19 and 15.
What is that challenge?
It's being a mum, right? It's the balance between, because I'll be honest with you, one day I want to take over the world and be a career girl and be 100% in my business. The next day I want to be a stay-at-home mum and make cookies all day, and you know, and the house be immaculate and everything else. And I think coming back to what we were saying about balance, life, I don't believe there is any such thing as balance. I don't think it stays still like this, because the second you get balance, it moves. Something moves. Your kids will get sick, or something will happen at work, or something will happen. So I think, and a good friend of mine said about this concept of balancing, and I believe that life is a juggling act. You were juggling like 15 balls all at the same time.
Oh yeah.
You know, a lot of us are parents, you know, or if not, we're partners. We've got parents, we've got siblings, we've got friends, we've got colleagues, we've got clients, we've got, you know, peers. There's so many different hats that we are wearing. And I think the difficulty we have now is this concept of, well, I am who I am, and I'm going to be this person in all of my world. I also don't think that works, because you start being the same person you are at home for your partner as you are with your colleagues, and you've got a mess happening.
You've got bigger problems,
right? So it is about wearing that hat and actually realizing, when am I bringing my work hat home? When am I bringing my home hat to work? And actually compartmentalizing between those different roles, I think is really,
they're very, very different. Funny, I was just, before we came on, I was listening to a podcast, and it was The Diary of the CEO.
Yeah.
And Stephen Bartlett. He's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. And he had a lady on speaking, and I can't remember her name because I'm terrible at remembering names anyway. But she is a neuroscientist, and she does a lot of speaking on balancing. And I can't remember where I was going with this. What were you saying beforehand?
About balancing rather than the rigidity of balance.
Yeah. She was talking about this idea that we all are trying to take control.
100%. Yeah.
And she kind of had this mantra, and she says it really has worked for her and for her clients as well, is where it's like a kind of a fuck it attitude. Realizing that you can't actually control everything, and 100%. Learning just to dance with the things that happen, And she is a Christian as well, and I'm a Christian as well. And this is a big part of what I teach as well, is that embrace things with grace.
And I love that you say that. Yeah, I think that is super key. What you've just said, I see that in all of my clients. There's three kind of common factors that I see in my clients. One, they're high achievers. They love growth. They love progression. I mean, I would say who doesn't, but I don't think everybody in the world is the same.
Not everybody.
No, exactly. Some people say, oh, well, everybody's a high achiever. I don't believe that. I don't believe that everybody wants that.
They opened their eyes and looked around the world and not just hung around high achievers. They might see that there are other people out there.
Yeah. And I think what happens is we automatically see people like us. So we think everybody in the world is the same as us, but they're not. So they're traditionally high achievers who want growth, want more, want to progress, love that feeling of progression and change. Maybe not necessarily change. I don't know that they always love change, but they love evolving. And the second thing is that kind of like, well, that one and two is kind of together, but they're also very self-aware, so they can see inside themselves. They can see the things that they're doing and not doing. And the difficulty is we can be very good then at nitpicking at ourselves because we love growth so much. We're so obsessed with keep developing.
Yes.
So when we're not looking at our greatness, what we're doing is look at like earlier.
Going back to what Nick James said at the ECA retreat that we were at, he was like, how often do you stand in the gap? In the gap between where you've been and where you're going to, and just being in that moment and seeing how far you've come without putting so much pressure on yourself to keep pushing ahead, because that's, as Anna you've said, is really, really key from a mental health perspective and also a gratitude perspective. To be able to step into grace is to be grateful and seeing how far you've come and grateful for what you've got around you, and sometimes realizing that there's things that you've got control over and things that you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
And even the things that you don't have control over, someone else has, and all you need to do is empower that person so that they can do it themselves. Like, I've seen some amazing, I mean, genuinely amazing human beings, general counsels, heads of legal director, high achieve. They're not just even high achieving, they're just naturally great at people following them, which is what I call leadership. And going back into that first point that we made about authenticity and you setting the way and then leading that, I think leadership is less about following the person rather than following what they're about.
Their ideals. I think you're right. And also, like, even as a leader, I don't think being a leader is checking to see if people are following you. I don't think that's what being a leader is. I don't think it's keep looking back over your shoulder to say, oh, are people coming with me? Are people coming with me? I think actually being a true leader is actually you living your life with purpose and intention, and as we've been talking about, authenticity. Right.
Yeah. And knowing what that is, what you're actually standing for. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to stand up and revolt against anything, but what is it that you represent? I do remember being at a brilliant presentation, and a good friend of mine, Kevin Within, he's absolutely brilliant, a senior lawyer in a Fortune 500 company, and he done a presentation for women in law. I'm going back like 4 years, whenever my business started, and he had a video of a bunch of people at this music festival, and someone got up and started to dance, like seriously dance. They just were like free. They were dancing out of the ordinary. They definitely did not have a dance background, but they just got up and they let themselves free. And then someone else got up afterwards and they'd done the exact same thing. And then other people got up and done the same. So eventually it turned from one
That's
person into
movement.
like a group of hundreds.
Yeah.
And the interesting point that Kevin asked was, who was the leader? Who did people follow? And he said
Wow.
people didn't follow the leader, they followed the follower.
So it was almost like one on.
So it's like, yeah,
Next
yeah,
way.
it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought whenever we go back to the original point that we made about doing something different, standing up, and if someone follows you, that's fantastic. But just because you do something different doesn't necessarily make you the leader. It's the thing that you're doing that other people want to buy into. And I would suggest in that video that Kevin showed us was that people didn't buy into the fact that he was up dancing like a Looney Tune. Not that they were at all, but it just looked really funny. I think what people bought into them was the sense of freedom that that person was demonstrating, and that if he could get up and dance freely and with that sense of freedom, why can't I?
And you know what? I think freedom's in your own head. And even, I'm going to touch it. I don't really like this subject, but I'm going to touch on it briefly. But back in COVID, I think because a lot of people are like, oh, COVID, they're still in COVID now, right? Because they
Yeah,
keep bringing it forward. In COVID, for me, I was the freest I've ever been. What I realised in COVID was, in actual fact, freedom is in your head. Because touching on the control piece, I really realised in COVID that I could not control a single thing outside of me. However, there were a couple of things I could control. That was what I thought, what I did, my reactions, my responses, whether I am reacting or responding, whether I'm taking it in, whether I'm actually kind of
yeah,
like thinking, okay, rather than instantaneously acting on something, what do I want to do? And not necessarily rushing into things, because I think we've been trained to be so reactive. Just society generally, our phone pings. And I see so many people, I see people walking down the road and they're like on their phones, and I'm like, what on earth is going on? To this point. But freedom is in your head at the end of the day. No one can make you feel anything. Everything is in your
oh,
head. And I think that,
100%. It's
yeah,
restricted, probably, and it's like just building on what you've said, Anna. It's like I like to use illustrations. It's like I
mm,
remember whenever I was younger, while I'd done my law degree, and in between my law degree and starting a master's, I acted for a while.
I love that.
And yeah, I don't know whether I told you that. And when I was acting, I learned how to lose my inhibitions
Love that.
and to just be
Mm,
without judgment. Now, it's a lot easier to get up and be on stage acting someone else, a character, than it is being yourself. Now, that's been a journey since that, but just that whole sense of that it's okay to be who you are without fear of judgment, and that will allow you to have less inhibitions. Sorry, to be less inhibited. And as we get older, like if we see kids, like I see my nephew, and he's 7 now, and my niece, she's 6, and then we've got more of them, but they're at an age that I think that I can start seeing society starting to impede how they
yeah.
behave.
Oh, definitely. And it is, isn't it? It's kind of whenever we do anything, it's like, oh, well, what will the neighbour say? What will Joan down the road say? What will our
Oh
friends
gosh,
say?
yeah,
What will
and that
people
comes from the
say?
adults. That comes from the adults.
Yeah. Oh, don't be too loud. And and we've spoken about this. And what drew me to you, Donna, and we kind of had this conversation, didn't we? And you were like, me being, you said this to me, that you being energized is actually you see as your biggest strength. And I was like, I've come from the background of being told I was too much, or you're too loud, or you're too this and you're too that.
Yeah, and because we're quite similar like
Yeah,
that.
we are
And
quite similar.
yeah, but I've been told, because of the narrative that I've been hearing from the people around me, that has been encouraged.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
believe you me, I have had people to say, "Oh, it's just can you keep it down a bit?" The other night. I was at a Christian um, a party and I was told to keep it down because it was too loud. And I said, "Oh, do you mean that?"
That's not very Christian, does
I,
it?
and this is, well, we're just all human. And I said, "Do you mean that you struggle around loud noises?" And they said, "Yeah, that would have been a better way to say it." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Because I'm not too loud." I'm so loud. I'm
And
the
that's
part
perception,
of the
isn't
party.
it? What's the perception of too loud? Because you and I together, right? What's the perception of too loud? I think us together, our perception of too loud, and maybe someone else's perception of too loud, maybe two very different
Maybe
things.
too much. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
and
with
I
a
think
shout out
that's
to
so
Van
important.
Helwell.
Yeah, and I think
You,
that's so important in life, perception, because everybody's perception is different. And if you are trying to fit in with everybody's perception, I talk a lot with my clients about if you were, because within their businesses, we work a lot around their ideal clients and their niches and the strategy and all of that stuff. And I think sometimes, I sound like I'm contradicting myself because one week I'll say one thing to them and the next thing I'll say something else. The reason for that is because they're changing and developing, and actually they need different things
yeah.
at different times. Because someone who comes to me and is beating themselves up that they don't have a niche, if I turn around to them and say, you need a niche, you've got to go away and do this niche, that's the last thing that they need, right? Because they're already doing that to themselves. It's just going to make it worse. So I think it's really important that actually we just tell ourselves it's okay. It's okay not to have this sorted out right now. But what is the next step?
Well, it's
What
like
is that one next step?
perfection, isn't it? That perfection. So
100%.
what I've done, Anna, to pull all of that together for anybody who's watching or listening,
Love it.
because
I love this about you, Donna. You're so like we are so different in the fact that I do all like the I don't know what stuff, and you are very like right. Here's the strategy, and I love it. We work so well together.
yeah, that's my bag. Going back to the question earlier on, I asked, what is the thing that you need to work on?
Yeah.
For me, ironically, the thing that I need to work on is more structure. I'm brilliant at giving it for other people, but for myself, not so great. But just to give some structure to anybody who's watching or listening, like that is a lot of information, and we've had a lot of anecdotes and experiences around talking about what leadership is and what it kind of isn't. Take your notepads out and take comfort knowing that leadership nowadays is about being authentic. What we mean by that and what we've talked about there is about getting really clear for you on what it is that you stand for and how you want to operate. Because part of that is understanding kind of your purpose and your values. Because a lot of the time we feel inauthentic is whenever something's happening around us and we're stepping in to it where it's against our value system. So if you're really clear on what your values and what your purpose is, you can enter into a conversation really clearly at that time whenever you feel a little bit that it's not authentic, and you can explain, like, for me, this is my value and this is where it's really important, and that can really help you articulate your position in a more authentic way so people can understand where you're coming from. The second one was around understanding others' strengths, not putting square pegs into round holes, for example. Understanding your people, understanding the people that are reporting into you, helping them to understand what they want in their career in terms of development, and helping supporting them to get there. And I think off the back of that, one of the other things was about not letting other people dictate um, what you do. Obviously, there needs to be some grace, as we talked about, in how you negotiate with other people. And I think one of the other skills that we probably didn't hone in on as much there, that I think we could have drawn out more, is learning how to communicate gracefully and influence other people. And part of that is kind of understanding other people and how you can go into their world and pull them back so you can have a mutual understanding. That, I think, is probably the biggest skill that I teach in the in-house lawyers leadership program, because that's all about helping the in-house legal team to really position themselves so other people can see the value that they bring. But the first thing we need to do is go into other people's world rather than saying, oh, they do this, they do that, they don't value me, they don't listen to me. Go into their world first, bring them back. And with that, that will give you a lot of freedom. So you feel less inhibited about having those conversations because you've developed the skills to communicate in an effective way. And knowing that it's okay not to be perfect, that you will make mistakes. Allowing other people around you to make mistakes, because guess what? In those mistakes, if we're graceful, that's when we grow the most.
Definitely.
So that's my summary of what we just talked about.
Love it. And the best stuff comes out of mistakes, right? Oftentimes, I love what you just said about mistakes. So many good things actually come from a path of that you didn't think you wanted to be on, right? And something else will happen. So
yeah, well, obviously we're not talking about. Well, I actually saying that, I was going to say we're not talking about if you commit a criminal offence and you're sitting in jail. I know people who have gone to prison for various different reasons. Some I would question that they should have been there in the first place. But anyway, the growth that they have had being there has been absolutely phenomenal. And they're out now leading the way on this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure I think we have mutual people that we know that have grown so much through real trauma and real hardship.
Definitely. And I mean, that's almost like the argument, isn't it? Like, can we actually, the debate over can we actually grow if we don't have those failures or those challenges or that adversity?
Yeah.
Can you grow as much? Because I think we're almost in this society now that we think everything should be awesome all the time. And let's face it, if everything is awesome all the time, that's the new normal. You've got to have something else that actually can show you that that's awesome. You need that almost like that balancing between.
I understand, yeah. And to any like Gen Zs, is it Gen Z? No, I am. I'm Gen
I have no idea. I'm not into all of that. Which generations are which?
To any like Gen Z and younger generations that's out there, like you probably look at us and say, yeah, that's how it is in your life, and that's how it was whenever you grew up. Like, guys, I am coaching people your age, and one of the big challenges that your generation is facing is a lack of resilience, and that's what's causing anxiety.
Yeah,
nothing about anxiety, and because, well, that's not fair. The anxiety that people our age would have experienced back in the 80s and 90s is very different than the anxiety that the younger generations experience today. And big contributors towards that is obviously the development of technology, AI, and the immediacy of things that puts a lot of anxiety on the younger generation. And I do feel for that. For us, it was big traumatic events that caused it.
Yeah. And I think it is we do need to look at that differently. I say all the time to people, my kids are my biggest teacher because they are of a different generation. They are a couple of generations back, and actually my kids lead the way for me every day for me to learn and grow. Because for me to actually not react, for me to respond, oftentimes I've got to grow as a person to actually interact with them. So I think we need different generations to teach us different things.
I completely agree, because especially in the generation that's coming in to qualify as lawyers, they're a lot more aware of mental health and mental resilience because it's been taught in schools. We never got taught those things in school.
Exactly.
But however, I think that the balance needs to be struck between that and resilience. And what kids are not getting taught today is resilience. And that might sound old-fashioned. That might sound, why should I? Because if you have a little bit more resilience within you and how you handle particular situations, and you're not expecting other people to fix it for you, and you find out ways that you can fix it yourself, you become a lot more self-assured, a lot more effective, and you can help more people around you.
Definitely. And also, I think within that as well, I think if you don't know what anxiety is or what it feels like, you can't actually experience it. You can't actually experience something that and in the past, many years ago, I was having panic attacks every single night. Lucky for me, I didn't know what I was having was a panic attack. I was waking up drowned in sweat, like literally freezing cold, shaking, and with massive heart palpitations. That is a panic attack. Luckily for me, I didn't know that's what was happening.
What do you mean when you say, why do you think that's luckily you didn't know?
Because I think if I'd known I was having a panic attack the minute, and I have worked with people, top directors in investment companies, in different firms who were having panic attacks. And the first thing I did with them is I banned the word panic attack, and I banned them even thinking it. Because what would happen, they would start to feel funny in their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
The second they said to themselves, I'm having a panic attack, guess what happened? They went into having a panic attack. They were living out exactly what they thought. So I think it would be a lot worse. Yeah.
Okay. So it's like you work with them to change the narrative around what they're experiencing.
100% changing that narrative. And our language is so key. The language that we use, we live what we say and what others around us say. We live what people tell us that we are, and we live what we tell it.
We absorb it osmosisly. That's not even a word.
Yeah, 100% we do.
This kind of comes into another. I know we're going on. I thought we would only be a half an hour, but
I know. Do we wrap up now, Donna? We'll be here for like 3 hours.
I want to wrap up that point that Anna made because I think it's brilliant. Because part of being a good leader is managing your stress. I put out a post this week on LinkedIn, and I'm just going to pull it up. And essentially, I put out a quote from another neuroscientist and best-selling author called Tara Swart. And I've got onto the Diary of a CEO, and I've been listening to a lot of the interviews on there, and I think they're just absolutely brilliant. So Dr. Tara Swart has said that leaders, if they don't manage their stress, that it actually trickles down into the people around them, because she explained how the stress hormone cortisol actually leaks out through our main organ, our skin. So anybody who's in close proximity, even if we're trying to cover it up, and if we think that we're covered it up and we haven't said anything and we haven't acted and we haven't shouted, we haven't acted in any way that would demonstrate that we're stressed, she said that's irrelevant because we leak it.
Wow. Yeah.
We leak it. She says that actually cortisol actually leaks through our skin. So people in very close proximity to us will absorb that. So leaders have more of a responsibility to manage their stress. And a lot of that managing the stress is about managing that narrative in your head about how you are, what you're telling yourself in response to certain situations that you're experiencing. Hence the reason why Anna and I coach, and that's what we coach, is that mindset. So moving into the leadership mindset, which we both work on, is about managing those internal stories that we're telling ourselves. I call it your mind prison, your shitty mind prison, getting yourself out of that so that you can step into freedom.
Narrative. And let's face it as well. I mean, I tend to, with my clients, call them narratives, because let's face it, right? We don't wake up in the morning and we say to ourselves, I'm telling myself a story about this. We don't say that. Right?
We're not conscious of it.
Donna and I do as coaches, right? But as you know, I think we're dealing with this stuff all day long. We know we're telling ourselves a story, and that can be half the battle, right? Can't it? Of actually knowing that and actually what to do about it.
How many times do you pick up yourself and then go,
oh, I know.
Where did that one come from?
I annoy myself with coaching myself. I'm like, for goodness sake, Anna, just let yourself be a normal human being for like at least half a day, right?
Yeah.
But it is, I don't think we wake up and think, oh, I'm telling myself a story, because it feels very real. We can say, oh, I'm telling myself an excuse. It doesn't feel like an excuse. It feels like a very valid reason. Mm-hmm. So I do also think when we're going back to that grace, and, we're very similar. We talk about a grace a lot. I call it something slightly different, gratitude and whatever else. That's key. Because if we don't have grace with ourselves of going, you know what, I get to free pass myself today, I get to give myself a get out of jail free card, I can actually do whatever it takes today to just get through the day. I think we're being very unfair. It kind of comes back to that.
Completely. And I see some of the, so as you know, I've said I work with lawyers that sit on the exec really in FTSE public companies, and I've been working with some, I mean, genuinely amazing human beings, and these guys are like just, and girls are amazing. And one day I was speaking to X, I'm not going to give their name, and they said, I just want to scream. I just want to scream, Donna. I don't have the time to change my underwear. I haven't changed my underwear this morning. I just pulled on my trousers and jacket and off out I went. And he says, I just want to scream. And I said, can I just ask, how often do you tell that to your direct reports? That I just want to scream? He said, I can't say that. I'm the leader. And I said, well, what about leading them into feeling confident in talking about their emotions? And he said, yeah, he says, but they're women. And if I said to them, I just want to squeal, they'll just all want to squeal too.
Honestly, that would be very cathartic though. You know what? It would be a cathartic, like a little screaming, a squealing circle. Wow.
Yeah. But he did. He went to them and he said, look, I've been working with my coach, and she told me that I should just scream. And they were like, go for it. We're here behind you. And then it didn't scream, but it did go, ah!
Yeah. I know. I love that.
The laughter around the table.
Yeah.
I was such a bond. Yeah, I was such a bond. Oh, sorry, yeah. We're just like talking over each other. We're so good at this, Donna. But yeah, and what you were just, I think I got very overexcited there about the point you were making. And even when we do that, it can turn into laughter, which changes our state like that. Oh, and it changes everybody else as well. So they like if they because of the relationship that he has with that he's already developed through working together with his direct reports, because that relationship wasn't there at the start, and the fact that he felt comfortable enough to do that, actually he said like he feels like the people around him, his direct reports, don't feel like they're his direct reports anymore, that they're his colleagues.
And the human element.
That human element, and bringing lawyers back to being human is a big thing at the moment out there. But it's being okay and knowing that you're not perfect, and telling someone and being okay. Like even as a leader, you can come in and say, guys, I've had a bit of a difficult night. My kid, whatever, wasn't sleeping, so just bear with me today because I'm feeling a bit tired. And letting people know that and making people aware of what the hell's going on with you is a strength.
I think it's a strength.
And it's part of being authentic.
I think you're right. And actually saying, you know what? And I'm very open in the fact that, you know, I've got stuff happening with my kids, my sons have challenges of their own, and we go through school and different stuff. And quite frankly, there's some weeks that I go, I want to hibernate and do nothing. Right. And I think that's just like being a human, isn't it? It's like we have weeks that we want to take, that we feel strong enough to take on the world. And there's weeks that we think, oh, if only I could be a whatever animal hibernates. Can't really think of one at the moment. But if only I could hibernate. Banana, go hibernate. Just sit on my sofa for like a week. I know it would last like 3 hours, but hey.
I know. Good, right? But then we also know that if we're feeling like that, is our state of mind, and we just need to change our state.
100%. It's all about that change.
Absolutely. 100%. So what we're going to do is just wrap up there. Anna, I want to say thank you so much, darling, for your time this morning. I know it's a Saturday morning, the week before Christmas. Sorry, it sounds like a story coming on here. But I just want to say thank you so much. And just to remind everybody that Anna's podcast is coming out. I think it's going to be in the new year, and the podcast is going to be what's it called again?
So being imperfectly perfect. I am. See, this is how imperfectly perfect it is. I did originally call it being perfectly perfect, and for one reason or another, it just didn't feel aligned. And also, I kept saying the name wrong.
Fine.
So I've changed it, and it's all good.
So what is it again? Let's not confuse anybody.
Exactly, because I've just done it, right? So being imperfectly perfect, but you can visit me at annawood.co.uk anyway, and everything will be on there. See, now I'm going to have to go and put it on there, aren't I? Because otherwise people won't see it.
You got to do it. You got to do
this morning, putting my podcast on the website. So note to self.
On the website, put it on.
Exactly. And center.
So thank you so much, Anna. And I just want to say thank you to anyone that has sat on and listened to us talking about leadership, what leadership is, and how you can step into, well, not step into being a leader, but how you can understand these leadership qualities and abilities a little bit more so that you can operate at that leadership level. And remember, you are a leader in everything that you do in life. You do not have to wait to be at the top of an organization to lead. You are leading right now. So here's to an amazing, amazing Saturday. And thank you so much for listening. Again, I'm Donna McGrath, the In-House Lawyers Leadership Coach. And this is a podcast on leadership by Donna Mack. Thank you.